And welcome back to the Babble Boys podcast. I'm James, joined as always with my good buddy Jeff. Jeff, how we doing, man?
Good. It's still cold as fuck outside.
It is very cold. And so I think where I'm at the moment, 32. I'm not, I miss the warmth, I miss the warm sand on my toes.
I like the warmth until it's 110 degrees out, and I'm cussing that out too.
Yeah. I mean, me personally, I kind of like a dry heat. More of a dry because
Oh yeah,
having
yeah.
lived on the East Coast, we know what humidity is, and that shit sucks sometimes.
It's like in Afghanistan, it'd be like 120 degrees, and you walk outside, it feels like you open the oven door. But but it wasn't sticky outside like you were walking through like Aunt Jemima syrup.
Yeah.
I mean, each has their pro and con, and I mean, how dare Mother Nature not take me into account when she puts the weather out? I mean, how dare her?
Well, so in the news, another group of people not taking you into account. Congress passed the defense bill overwhelmingly. So $741 billion.
Surprise!
That's with a B. You could take the next 10 countries in terms of the hierarchical of spending, and they're not going to even combine to reach $741 billion.
You know what else you could do? You could end world hunger for 10 years.
See, yeah, I mean,
you could. You absolutely could. You could end world hunger for 10 years. Here's a philosophical question for you to get us started then. If we stopped spending so much money on killing each other, what could we accomplish if we came together?
I mean, anything.
Yeah. Like colonizing
literally anything. Yeah.
We like to kill each other.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, this is America.
Hey, this is history. That's all it is, one giant story of us fucking butchering each other.
So for record, the House is predominantly Democrat, which we know. Not by as wide of a margin as before.
7 seats, I think.
Yeah, it's not by much. But so it passed 335 to 78. 40 of those 78 were Republicans. 38 were Democrats. So
it's right in the middle.
In the middle, I find it surprising.
I do too.
I find it surprising from both parties, to be quite honest with you.
I would need to look at all, 78 of them and see what their reasonings were, because maybe if it's concerned on like fiscal matters, maybe they should leave and start their own new party. Because as of right now, the Democrat and Republican Party are the two longest standing parties in the history of our country.
Yeah, I definitely think we're going towards that route. Yeah. So we got an article here from the New York Times breaking. The $741 billion measure passed with a veto-proof majority, setting up a potential showdown with President Trump in the final weeks of his term. The House overwhelmingly passed the defense bill on Tuesday that would require that Confederate names be stripped from American military bases, defying President Trump's veto threat and moving lawmakers one step closer to a potential showdown. The 335 to 78 bipartisan vote to approve the legislation that authorizes pay raises for American troops reflected optimism among lawmakers in both parties that Congress would be able to force the enactment of the bill over Trump's objections in what would be the first veto override of his presidency. Now, obviously, these people don't give a shit about American troops. But think of this. They authorized a pay raise. I guarantee
that every time.
It's not a big pay raise.
It's probably not even 1.2% to match inflation.
But if you go against it, then you go against paying our troops more money.
You don't care about the troops.
You're a bad man.
It's all a dog and pony show. Hey, but I got a question. So all Confederate general names are gone, and it's a well-known historical fact that the Confederate generals were much better than the Union generals. But, obviously, they were bad. according to everything. But can you have a base named after a Union general who also owned slaves?
You probably can until people figure out that he owned slaves, which might take a couple years for people
swear to God,
open their history book.
If they don't take George Washington off the dollar bill, I'm gonna fucking riot.
So it goes on. It also amounted to a remarkable break from the president by Republicans who refused to defer to Mr. Trump's desire to derail a critical bill at this time in the White House. If we don't pass this bill and exercise oversight, we are ceding authority to the executive branch, authority that is too great already, said Adam Smith, Democrat of Washington and the chairman of the Armed Services Committee. Let's not walk away from our biggest opportunity every year to exercise that legislative oversight. This is a good bill, he says. Congress has succeeded in passing the military bill each year for 6 years. Who would have thought? But Mr. Trump's objections have threatened to upend that tradition. How dare he, as he has warned since the summer that he would veto the bill.
So is the executive branch too powerful because Donald Trump is in it? Or is it just because it's too powerful? Because, I mean, if we're going to pretend like Obama wasn't a king or a monarchy, then, fuck the facts, I guess.
Well, I mean, the facts only matter when your party's not in the White House.
I mean, I agree. It is too powerful, but it doesn't matter who's in it.
No, it doesn't matter who's
Joe Biden's going to come in here and executive order the shit out of everybody.
Oh, yes. Especially if the Democrats lose the Senate, I mean, he's gonna govern the way Obama did his last 4 years, 2 or 4 years.
Executive order. Yep. Oh yeah.
So here's a quote from Trump. I hope House Republicans will vote against a very weak NDAA, which I will veto, Mr. Trump said on Twitter. Must include a termination of Section 230 for national security purposes, preserve our national monuments, and allow for 5G and troop reductions in foreign lands. How dare he ever request troop reductions in foreign lands?
Let's talk about 5G, though. I'd like to have a quick conversation about that. The reason why Donald Trump and other Republicans want to limit the infrastructure of 5G in other countries is because it is a massive security issue for us. If they get control of our telecommunication infrastructure, what do you think happens? They get control of all of our nuclear plants, so everything. It is actually a massive security breach. And I'm pretty government hands off of things like that, but that's a pretty big deal. And it's not like it's going to hurt these companies because these telecommunication companies are the richest, most powerful companies in human history. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I believe his argument has some logic to it.
No, I agree. But at the same time, you have to remember these telecommunications companies, they'll sell out us in a heartbeat.
That's why, or even the social media companies, they have Mark Zuckerberg come in Congress and he just sits there and says, he don't give a shit.
They don't care.
No.
Many of them disregarded that appeal. Mr. Trump's late demand to include a sweeping rollback of legal protections for social media companies in the military bill has divided his party. Some Republican leaders have publicly described the move as untenable and privately called it unreasonable. Senator James M. Inhofe of Oklahoma, the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, has said he will try to override a veto and has been privately lobbying the president to support the bill. But while Representative Kevin McCarthy, Republican of California, and the minority leader said on Tuesday that he would support the measure, he told reporters that he would not vote to override an eventual veto, suggesting that members of the president's own party should not join in such an effort. Section 230 needs to get done, McCarthy said, referring to the repeal of the legal liability for social media companies. Now, Section 230, you can't abolish it. You can't repeal it because it'll completely squash these upstarts, these smaller social media platforms, because they're not going to have the money to fight court cases.
Yeah. Which was like repealing net neutrality. It made competition almost impossible. No wonder Google and all of them didn't want it to get repealed. I mean, it's common sense. You don't want more competition in the market. You want less competition. You want to own the market. You want a monopoly.
Mm-hmm. And it's I'm surprised that. Well, I mean, I'm sure that big tech was behind a lot of these votes. I'm sure they
Of
lobbied
course. Of
for this
course.
veto-proof majority. But I mean, Section 230, that's not going to be done anytime soon.
And like I'm giving just the basic information that I know about it because I am not an expert on Section 230 whatsoever. But I mean, I know that there are some security issues for it. There's some market implications for it, but I am by no means an expert on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I would definitely have to do a lot more research on it because that's a pretty multi-layered issue there.
Yeah, I think the main caveat is these companies acting as platforms or publishers. And
Yeah, I
that
know.
distinction draws separate legal requirements and legal protections.
And like I don't think they should be held accountable for something somebody posts. I mean, you know, like
No.
I think that's ridiculous. I mean, to even suggest that. I mean, but you know, you got the question. At what point in time? I mean, they're a private entity, so like freedom of speech doesn't apply to them.
No.
But at what point in time, when they get so big and powerful, do things like that kind of have to start applying to them? Because if Facebook and all them censoring, you know, which they're already doing, that can have a massive effect on, you know, like our culture and the things that we believe. I mean, at the end of the day, they dictate what's truth and what's conspiracy, and like I
Mm-hmm.
have a problem with that. I'm not even on social media.
I agree, but I also think that um, we are in a capitalist economy, and I think
Right.
that we have the right to say, I don't want to use your service anymore. And I
And I
think that
agree.
we should exercise that right first before we take any kind of legal action or require government oversight. I mean, I personally, I'm sure you would too, like to not go down that route.
Yeah, and I mean, but like you also cannot go down a route where you make it more difficult for competition to come into a market either. You know, like
Yeah.
now we have Parler and stuff like that popping up. You know that promises to never censor things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there nothing lasts forever. So I'm confident that at some point in time, Google or Facebook or they're gonna get replaced at some point in time by something bigger. I mean, look what happened to MySpace.
Yeah. I mean, that's
But
a good point.
they're ahead of the game too. I mean, like Google's a super ahead of the game. You know, like they got all kinds of AI and you know, so I mean, I just don't know. But I mean, at some point in time, you might have to have the discussion of busting up, you know, the big tech companies like they did with oil back in the 20s and 30s. You know,
Yeah, I agree. The only issue is these companies that we would love to see be replaced are worth so much money. I
yeah,
mean, I don't know how. I mean, that's a mountain. I don't know how small people like Parler could ever compete with that.
no, and it just brings to the point like me as a conservative person, you know, like I'm like, oh, big government equals bad, you know. But come to find out right now, it's the capitalism system that is doing the censoring. But I don't believe that that's capitalism. I believe that's corporatism.
It's
They
definitely
have
corporatism.
they have such big lobbying power, they can get away with that. You know, they team up with one political party, and whatever that political party says is true, and the other one's bullshit.
Mm.
You know, and I don't know. I mean, we're kind of stuck. We're at like we're walking a very tight rope right now with what we should be doing, and I don't really have the answer for it because you know I either go against my values or you know
Well,
it's
I think
hard.
in this day and age, it's more important to stay principled.
But
Because a
me and
lot of
you,
people are you have libertarians, you have conservatives that are just they want things that are the complete opposite of their beliefs, but they want
yeah.
them because they're scared, they're mad, they're acting based on their emotions
I
and
mean, I
not their
think
principles.
yeah, absolutely, and I think social media censorship is scary. But that leads me to my next point. You were in the army, and I was in the army, and I don't really know how to word this without coming off bad. But I don't think that being an American soldier should be a super high paying job. And the reason why I say that is because I don't want people to join for the money. I want them to join because they want to. I believe that that is a better kind of person to have watching your back than somebody who joined for just a paycheck.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, I agree completely. Now, I think there are jobs that should be paid more than others, obviously.
But a
But
PFC should, like a private first class in the Army, should not make more than a teacher with a master's degree.
no,
But
no,
that's reality.
that's not. Yeah, and like you said, I mean, it's not. Nobody joins the army. Nobody enlists. Let me say it like this: nobody enlists into the army as a non-commissioned officer to make money.
No, and I mean, I'm not saying like you could break it down anyway and be like, oh, they actually don't make that much. But I'm saying if you're married, you get your house paid for, and you get, you get your base pay, and you get full benefits. You're making a significant amount of money with
You can survive.
With very little marketable skill.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like that's like if you make being a cop a really high paying job, people aren't going to do it for the right reasons.
No.
Like you want patriotic people in the military, or people with like a good skill. I mean, you don't want people joining, saying, oh, well, it's a high paying job. They're going to join. Their heart's not into it. They're just going to get on some kind of walking profile. They're not going to give a fucking shit, and they're just going to use the system. That's what happens. I don't like that. No, I mean, pay raises are fine, but I do believe that there should be a cap. Like a lieutenant in the Army, as soon as they enlist, they're making like $70,000 a year.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know that they deserve that, to be honest.
I mean, I'm not going to say who deserves what, because I mean, somebody be like, well, he got a Purple Heart, he deserves. Yeah, I get it, but the vast majority of people, especially in peacetime Army, they're I don't want to say they're not doing much, because they are, but like
they're not doing much.
It's hard to justify that money.
Yeah. So okay, I think that's a good way to differentiate it. Wartime, you should be paid more money.
I agree completely.
Peacetime, you should not be paid nearly as much. Now, obviously, you should keep the same benefits and you should be able to survive, but you should not be getting the kind of money that you would during a wartime.
You should not make more than a doctor being a captain.
Especially during peacetime.
That's what I'm saying. Like, yeah. I mean, I don't know.
That's probably not going to be a very
that would not be a popular view. That would not. But I mean, I served 6 years active duty. Like I see. I mean, and I see the waste. Like a toilet seat for an AC-130. I was in the Army. I only do this because I did a project on it. A toilet seat for like an AC-130. I don't know if they have toilets, but a big plane. Yeah. Okay. Costs $400 of taxpayer money for a fucking toilet seat.
I'm sure it does. I've seen it too, man. The waste is absurd.
Yeah, but and then you have. I remember it would be like, we'd get information. They'd be like, all right, guys, what do we need? Because we got $1 million we have to spend right now, or we're not going to get it again next year.
Yep.
So we're like, oh, well, let's get like 5 tough boxes per person. Yeah. And, like we're just spending money we don't even need. We got like a fucking Christmas tree in July,
yeah.
Because we need to spend it or we're not going to get it next year. Like shit like that is toxic.
Oh, yeah. No, I understand. It's that the whole process is, but it's just made to hemorrhage money. That's the point of it.
Absolutely. That's like what was Ben Carson the head of the Department of yeah. They bought like a $12,000 table and a bunch of other expensive ass furniture because they had to, or they wouldn't get the funding the following year. That's a backwards system. Yeah. You should get rewarded for saving money.
Yeah. I feel you.
I don't know.
This fucking pillow. So this chair has a pillow. Like a lumbar support.
Wait, your speed racer chair?
Yeah, yeah. And it's falling apart. The fucking cat keeps scratching it. So I want to continue this because it gets into exactly what they included.
By all means, go ahead. I was just getting off topic.
So the legislation contains a number of non-controversial bipartisan measures, including new benefits for tens of thousands of Vietnam-era veterans who were exposed to Agent Orange.
Okay.
And a 3% increase in pay for service members and a boost in hazardous duty incentive pay.
For what? There's no war.
Oh, hold on. But it also includes a slew of measures pushed by Democrats that were expressly intended to constrain some of the impulses that Mr. Trump displayed during his time in office. This bill would take steps to slow or block Mr. Trump's planned drawdown of American troops from Germany and Afghanistan, and would make it more difficult for the president to deploy military personnel to the southern border. Lawmakers also include language that would compel the president to impose new sanctions against Turkey for its purchase of a Russian anti-aircraft missile system, a step Mr. Trump has been reluctant to take despite the urging of lawmakers in both parties. The legislation also directly addresses the protests for racial justice spurred over the summer by the killing of Black Americans, including George Floyd, at the hands of the police. It would require all federal officers enforcing crowd control at protests and demonstrations to identify themselves and their agencies. And it contains the bipartisan measure that directs the Pentagon to begin the process of renaming military bases named after Confederate leaders.
The first part has not a fucking thing to do with the military. And you're going to block taking troops out of Afghanistan? That is directly because you had some piece of shit lobbyists from like Boeing or somewhere, paying to get. Why do you want to be in a war we've been there, for almost 20 goddamn years? Like go home.
But Jeff, we just gave them a pay raise and a boost in hazardous duty incentive pay. We have to stay because we're raising their money. We're giving them more money.
Like it raises my blood pressure, man. Like 20 years later, who do we have left to kill?
Hey, there's always a brown person left to smoke somewhere.
I know. We need to stay there because Iran lives there. Just so happens to Iran just so happens to live near Afghanistan.
Yeah, we gotta
we have to show our presence.
Buttons. We gotta mess with Turkey now because we gotta start a new proxy war somewhere. How else are we going to protect our freedom?
Yeah, I had somebody tell me one time, they're coming. I was like, who's coming? They're coming. I was like, okay, all right. They were like the Taliban. They're coming. I was like, what are they gonna do? Get on their fucking rowboat and row over here, Janet? Like, goddamn! Like nobody's coming to mess with our freedom. No, they're gonna cross the Mexican border. Okay. All right. Okay. Like these people believe anything. Allah or Muhammad is not he's not leaving his goat farm to come over here on a rowboat to take our freedoms.
No, and if we left, they would probably have even more of a reason to never fuck with us again because they know what happens when they do.
And I understand, like I once watched one of Jocko's podcasts. He's a great guy, and he said, we should just go in there and finish the job and get the fuck out. Okay, I'll even accept that. But
I mean, we have the power, the technology.
Oh yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of good people over there. So I mean, you have to be careful. But like, sure, go ahead, send 300,000 troops in there, and we'll walk hand by hand until we smoke every single bad guy, and then we're leaving.
We'll just form a police line across the whole country.
We're gonna FOD walk Iraq hand by hand until we smoke them all. Okay, and then we're leaving.
Yeah. And then but then they'll say, "Oh, we got to turn around. We got to go back.
We left one.
We got to go pick up our brass.
That's it.
We can't leave."
It's always like God. It amazes me. It amazes me.
Well, my friend, it looks like the status quo is just going to continue.
That's it,
Mr. Biden.
My kids will never know a day without war.
No, status quo Joe.
That's it.
Well,
the establishment.
That's it for this segment. If you liked what you saw, please like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.